Welcome to the Gifts from the Edge podcast, where you are about to meet parents and professionals, educators and entrepreneurs who have taken the path less traveled, and by doing that, have made all the difference. Now it's time to step out of the ordinary. Here's your host, Andrew Lord.
Hello and welcome back to Gifts from the Edge. Andrew Lord here with you, and today we are speaking with Zach Muetterties, who travels literally to the edge of conflict zones all around the world and helps to broker peace. Now, he's originally from the US, he's now based in Wollongong, works with Equal Access International, and he is passionate about fostering peace in some of the world's most conflicted regions. He has been to countries like Indonesia, Afghanistan, the Philippines, and heaps of others, and he helps these communities heal from the scars of war and conflict. Now, Zach has witnessed remarkable transformations where hope seems impossible. There's been militant groups meeting their enemies to different faiths. He has seen firsthand, and he believes in the power of connection and forgiveness. And so today we're going to talk to Zach. We're going to learn all about his incredible journey and find out some of the magic behind his method. I've really been looking forward to this one. Zach, so good to have you here. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, mate. It's good to be here.
Cool. This is exciting. So tell me just a little bit about your background. You know, you said in the introduction there that you're from the US. When did you come to Australia?
I came in 2006, so 18 years ago.
Okay.
And I came when I was 18. So I've spent half my life outside of the States.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. And so you call Australia home?
Yes, I'm Australian now. My wife as well, and my 3 daughters. And it's definitely home.
Yeah, cool. And can you tell us about this peace work? Can you tell us how that came about? How did you get into that?
Yeah, definitely. I didn't get into it by any ambition of my own. I was not looking for this work. I was not trying to do this work. And I actually, coming from a Christian background in America, I didn't have a very peaceful approach to the world, and I often share this with all my friends, particularly my Muslim friends and other groups, because I was really their enemy. I was everything that they were afraid of, and I only, especially with Islam, I really only had negative views. Through 9/11 was such a shocking moment in my life and for the whole world, that I really had a lot of labels on Islamic people around the world, and came from a culture where I wasn't explicitly taught this, but it was brought into me somehow that we are the best people in the world. We have the best culture in the world. We have nothing to learn from anyone. And as a Christian American as well, it was like God even loves us more than the rest of the world. And the rest of the world just needs to become like us to like that. That's the framework I had. And I came into a group called Youth with a Mission, which was, as far as when I started, I thought, wow, we're here to go tell the world that they need to become like us, and particularly like me as an American Christian. And that was took me on a path that you would not expect me to be doing peacemaking the way I do now. But I was so shocked when I first went overseas. I went to Egypt and I met Muslims, and they were nicer than any American Christians I ever met. And I was like, this is crazy. They're inviting me into their house. They're doing all this, like, they're nothing like what I was taught, and everything I got to know about them was nothing like what I knew or what I was told about this group. And what was interesting was they, at the same time, had spent their whole life learning that they were the best people in the world, the best culture in the world. The whole world just needs to become like them. And they never heard a good thing about a Christian or an American. They had only heard horrible things and thought all of Hollywood was Christian. So they were worried about me. They were afraid of me, that I was going to corrupt their children, or I was some evil person. And we're both meeting each other going, wow, all it took was this point of saying hello that transformed our prejudices against each other. And but I share all that to say that's some of my background. Is I began this journey then of having my whole world transformed as I continued to meet people that were my so-called enemies, and they were nothing like what I was labeling them, and nor was I anything like what they were labeling me. And that began a slow, long process of me unpacking and transforming my own life and my own relationships. But in the process of that, how did I get into peacemaking? It slowly evolved through me actually doing that, but also living in community in Australia. And you have to forgive a lot of people. You go through a whole lot of humbling experiences. You think you know it, and then you really blow it. And to walk through that for years and years in a community, and to stay in that community and still love each other. I think somehow through that process, we suddenly found people wanting that sort of engagement with us overseas. And I found myself slowly falling into this weird world of trying crazy experiments of seeing if maybe it could work with more than just me and my friends in Egypt. Maybe we could put our communities together. Maybe we could try putting a church in a mosque, or in a mosque in a church. And it all just started exploding into really strange experiments.
Yeah, okay.
So, yeah.
So describe for me what you mean by community. Are you talking like church community, or are you talking like literally living together in community with people?
Yeah, well, I started with this group, Youth with a Mission, and YWAM, that we lived in community in the same building, all different cultures, all different backgrounds, all different ages, families, single people. There's always new students coming through, so you never really get to like a place of homeostasis, because as soon as it settles in, you've got a new group coming. And yeah, but it's very intimate, close relationships, eating together every day, working together. Yeah, quite close quarters sometimes, and sharing bathrooms, the basic stuff of life. But man, everything happens around those basic parts of life.
Yes. Yeah.
And you realize you can't go make peace in the world if you can't make peace with your roommate,
Yeah.
And it's a real incredible training ground for refining your relationships, and for teaching you better communication, all sorts of things. So
do you have any examples that you can think of that that just happened in the dorm, so to speak, but that kind of rolled out in a bigger way in other parts of the world?
Yeah, I mean, I probably can't get too specific, but it's those little interactions are massive in me discovering how selfish I was. And usually you figure that out when you get married, which I found out more when I did. But it was a starting place of like, whoa, we can't keep going like this. Like, we need to actually come to some agreement about what is a clean room, or what is how. I just as well I had all these blind spots to where I was hurting other people by the way I lived, that it's no longer blind when you do it and the person's right there offended, and you got to talk it through. But I think the bigger things that I'm discussing are actually more around some of the deep relationships of my life, where there's real pain that lasted for years, and bitterness, and needing to forgive, with some of the deepest pains. That's stuff that, I mean, it's one thing to deal with your roommate, but when it's a close friend and there's a rip apart of relationship, that's the big journey of learning what's possible, not just in the world, but in my own heart. What am I capable of forgiving, and do I want to? And or am I fine that they're dead to me, there's happy to never see them again. And I had that so built into my life. I don't mean this to put my family down, but my family had such a history of generations of cutting people out, and that I got some of that too, of the response when someone's really not doing what you want, or you really can't figure it out, or it's too painful, you just cut them out. They're dead to me. And yeah, that, so it just took a lot of years of journey for me to even begin to walk in a different way. But I think community was powerful because some of those people didn't disappear, even though I gave them the silent treatment and like was totally brutal to them.
I didn't get
They
it.
stayed. They just stayed through it. And then that's really hard because then you have to see them every day and you're trying to be rude to them, but you're like, they don't disappear, which I think a lot of our culture in the West, it's so easy to never see someone again. They could live 3 doors down and you never talk to them.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, but I found in community, they didn't go away. They just were still there day after day. And it slowly forced me almost out of torture to have to find another way to deal with things other than just cutting out and killing the relationship. I had to find a way forward that was livable.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I think you touch on an important point there when you say it's so easy for us in the West to just kind of live kind of alongside, but never actually directly be in community with someone. And we have blind spots, as you mentioned, but conflict is kind of like grace to us, brings up the ability to see those blind spots. What you've described is that you have become mindful, like you've allowed it to be brought to the surface, whether willingly or just through someone else's persistence. It's been brought to the surface, which has allowed you to kind of do something about it. Do you want to, have you seen other parts of the world that you think, maybe do that better than we do just because of their close proximity or whatever the reason?
Yeah, I mean, it is quite a stark comparison to communal cultures in Indonesia or other places where they that there's like in the islands. I just was learning this recently. It's you're either seen as crazy or you're doing something wrong if you are quiet. And so they are never quiet and they're never alone because that's like the opposite of they don't want anyone to think anything bad about them. So like you see island culture, they're constantly community, like it's 24/7. And a lot of these communities that come to the West as refugees, say a Syrian refugee, they get put in a village in the middle of Germany that's dead quiet and nobody talks to anyone in the day, and they just go insane because their whole life was full of noise. There's always motorcycles, always noise, all night, everywhere, all the time. And that when they get to this pure silence in the middle of Sweden or something, they have like a mental breakdown because it's like
sounds like bliss to me, but yeah.
I know, exactly. Like, and for the Swedish, of course, they're like, yeah, we love it. We want to just the me and the stars. But for the Syrian refugee or these communities that all their life from birth to death, they always have aunts and uncles, cousins, people everywhere, animals everywhere. Like they are always in community. It's a wild thing. It doesn't mean that they do it better though. And obviously we know more publicly some of their conflicts. I think what's interesting is we look and judge those parts of the world as if they're worse than us at dealing with conflict. And yet I would say we are on the journey of learning from these communities how to walk through conflict, because the conflicts we have in the West, we have peace on the outside because we're being quiet and we're not doing anything to each other. But you go a little bit under the surface of any of our lives, we're full of resentment, bitterness, isolation, loneliness. There's pain that's been unresolved and is torturing us. We have all I'm sure you're more aware of the stats in Australia of mental health and all of that. And our conflict destroys us in a silent way or a more silent way. Even just the divorce rate is such a clear indicator of conflict in our community. But we go,
our inability to resolve that.
Yeah. And a lot of these communities that are at war with each other, they actually sometimes I find have an incredibly beautiful, healthy, small community of family and who look after each other despite the bombs going off and all that. They just have other issues of conflict across tribes, and it's more this group in conflict with that group rather than at a more localized level. They are actually sometimes incredibly beautiful and healthy, the way that they're functioning and looking after each other. And
so when you tell me about the peace camps. Did you kind of just jump on a plane and rock up in Afghanistan and then say, hey, do you want to come for a barbecue? Or did you join this group, Equal Access International? Tell me how it all started.
Yeah, it was a lot of years of journey. I'd slowly gotten connected with different people. I also had to have a bit of a transformation of my own worldview and my own religious thoughts and things to even begin to have an approach of valuing peace. But a key moment for me was I was having amazing moments individually all around the world, in Morocco and Afghanistan and China and all these places. I was having these profound experiences that didn't fit my worldview. But I met a guy named Jeff Burns, and he was based in America, still is, and he had been a pastor for 18 years and just hated Muslims. He has a whole testimony online of his journey of how he was transformed out of that. But he was a pastor in the South right after 9/11, and he had no interest, didn't want anything to do with Muslims and all that. And he had almost a miraculous encounter that shifted his whole life. And he ends up going to a mosque next door to his church or down the road. And he gets on his knees in front of the leader and just starts weeping and repenting for how he said, I'm supposed to be a follower of Jesus. I'm supposed to love my neighbor as myself. And I've never loved you. I've never visited you. Your mosque is right next to our church. And I'm so sorry. And he just weeps and confesses to this Muslim leader, I'm so sorry. I've not lived anything like what Jesus teaches. And the imam starts crying and starts to have they've had this incredible encounter with each other. And they said they felt instantly like brothers. And they felt this can't just be for us. This miracle has to be for our community. So they decided to bring the church to the mosque for prayers, and then to have pizza together and talk about who is Jesus to you or whatever. And then they brought the mosque to the church the next week and did the same thing. And it just completely transformed both the Christian and Muslim community. It healed all of these wounds. And then they started this movement of other churches and mosques around the US doing this. And he's got a whole journey of that. And he started doing peacemaking work, where it wasn't just about us coming together and becoming friends, but it also led to, let's work together towards bringing better peace to our communities. And they would actually work together on community projects for their city and all of that. And he started doing that, and he's been doing that internationally. And when I heard this, I just thought, this guy's the craziest guy in the world. You can't put a mosque in a church. You can't put a church in a mosque. There's no way. I would never have believed that was possible, except he was standing there telling me about it. And I just felt a burning in myself. I have to do this. I have to try this. Everything in me ached for this, because I could see in my travels that there's not as much between us as we think. But I didn't know that you could actually do that in more than just a one-on-one level. Could you actually put our communities in the same room together and it go well? And so I started to experiment. I tiptoed because I wasn't confident to jump in all the way. And I started in Wollongong, bringing Christians, having Christians go to the mosque. I couldn't find a church that wanted to. Every mosque I've ever been to in the world they say, we're ready. We want to do this. We want Christians to come. We want to meet each other. We want to eat together. It's just very, very rare to find a church that will answer that invitation.
Oh, wow, that's a challenge, isn't
it? It really is. For my community and my background, I'm like, wow, we're the ones not coming to the table. I've never found a mosque anywhere in the world that isn't excited by the idea of, let's do it. Let's come together and let's eat together. So in the process of that, every single time I got anyone to do anything like that, it just went well. It went amazingly well. It just built incredible friendships, and I was just so surprised. And it slowly, sometimes you do something twice and people think you're an expert. I had done this about twice, and then people started labeling me this peace guy that does this stuff. And so I got invited to some peace dialogues in Algeria, which were Christian leaders with the top Islamic leaders of Algeria coming together to discuss the holy books and the Quran. And that was it was amazing, but it was very dry. You get a bunch of religious leaders together. It's just very dry. But the meals afterwards were amazing. But then it just went from there. Then some friends invited me to do one in Turkey on the border of Syria, which was 110 people, Turks, Syrians, and Westerners. And I thought, this is crazy. We're going to live in hotel rooms together, like a Turk, a Westerner, and a Syrian, all of whom have issues with each other. And we're going to do it for 7 days. We're going to eat together, be together completely for 7 days in this hotel. And
wow,
it ended up being one of the most beautiful weeks of my life. I just couldn't
is there a framework that you use, or is it just like throw everyone in a pot and then like hope that it comes out? Because you said, a phrase stood out to me. You said it going well, that sort of jumped out at me. Like when I imagine people getting together, like those groups getting together, what I think is going to happen is that both of those groups are going to be really intent on being right, and bring their agenda to the table, or, focus on their differences, you might have a Venn diagram of similarities, but often people will just focus on these little trimming bits on the outside that are the differences, which magnify those, which then lead to, more conflict. So how does that work?
Yeah, I mean, the best description of it, one is every time I do it, it's different, but it's always directed by relationship and run locally. So I don't actually run any of these peace camps. I know I get the credit for it because I am a part of it, but I always have the local community host and own the program. It's theirs. They name it. They pick who comes. They organize everything. They're the experts in their community. I don't know. I'm not even remotely close to an expert in who to invite in the middle of on this remote island in Indonesia. Like the locals are the experts in that. So they know and have the relationships and enough trust to get the people that they feel should be in the room. And also what's amazing, if possible, is to have it locally funded, which then really brings this whole thing to this is their program. It's not a foreign thing coming in. That's not always the case. The one I did in Turkey wasn't so much that, but it still broke through. But the issue that you have right at the beginning when you walk in the room is nobody knows each other and everyone has their walls up and everyone's looking. And it sometimes in Afghanistan, my friends hosting this, it really wasn't clear if it was going to break out into a fight or if what was going to happen. Everyone's tense because they've never been in a room with all the tribes represented. It's such a strange thing to even be in a room together. And
is that a real possibility? Because you said they handle conflict differently. Like in Australia, we would probably be polite. We would voice out disagreements. We would maybe even shout, but that we probably wouldn't get physical.
Increasingly so with the places that I've been working more recently. It seems like it's getting increasingly what people would consider more dangerous because the conflict is much greater and the people coming into the room have a lot more violent history involved in their relationships with each other. And so in the Philippines recently, I mean, it was real commanders of leading militant groups that were coming together, and the police, who are their worst enemy, and you've got the different religious and different tribal things. And some of them, one of the guys in there was he's a retired hitman I mean, his whole career was being paid to kill people. So there's no hesitation for some of these guys to use violence.
Yeah.
But why didn't they? That's what's interesting is, I mean, a big part of it is the intro. I often begin the whole thing. I just start to tell them all of my failures and my sins, you know, of my own people, my country, and I lay it all out there and say, hey, I'm no one special. I'm not the source of peace for any of you, but I'm here because of my own journey where I don't deserve to be here. I've failed so many times, and for some of you, I was your worst enemy, but I'm here now as a transformed person who feels love and peace are possible for this place. And something in that disarms a lot of people putting up their best face. When you just take your mask off and just put it all out there, and you don't hide and you don't try to put on a face, a lot of people are willing to take their mask off and say, you know, yeah, our culture, my tribe's not been perfect either. And then the other tribe goes, okay, well, yeah, we weren't either. And it opens up a little bit of a more honest engagement and a little bit more of a humble engagement. But a lot of times the greatest breakthrough we do isn't any of the explaining. I don't do a lot of talking in peace camps, but the first thing we do is just get them into small table groups of 8 people or so. And they have to do this silly game where whenever you say your name, you have to do a ridiculous action, something, you know, you do a peace sign, or you do a salute, or whatever you want to do, spin in a circle. But they have to learn, everyone has to learn the names of everyone and it's so, like, you do 2 of those and everyone just starts to laugh, and a lot of the tension leaves the room. In Afghanistan, that's what happened. Yeah, just the silliness of my name is Omar, or my name is Zach, and like the silly actions just breaks through, and everyone goes, okay, I'm safe here, and we're not going to kill each other, and maybe I can get to know these people. And you go from there on a process to deeper and deeper questions, like, what does your name mean? Which in a lot of these places in the world, it's really meaningful. People will cry telling you, this is the name of my great grandfather who was accomplished this and did that. And they start to like get emotional because it actually means something to them. And you're listening and honoring their name. And then you get to a deeper question. Who has been a person of peace in your life? Who's someone who brings peace to your community? And they start to like name off these incredible people that nobody knows in these villages that nobody's heard of, that are holding the family together, or holding the village together. And it just, those questions are so personal, and you can't give a religious answer to that. You can't get into the debates between our groups and fighting, because the question is, who's been a person of peace in your life? It just doesn't lead us to the pitting ourselves against each other. It actually leads us to have compassion for each other and understand each other. And so that's the process, is a dialogue. We call it a dialogical process of you listen 7 times for every 1 time you speak, if you're in a group of 8, and that is powerful. And the questions are personal. Like, what is a moment that shaped your life? And you just go around 8 people sharing unbelievable moments that have shaped their life, and you go around again with a different question and a different question. And as these things are going, identities are shifting of us and them, and you start to realize, well, we both actually have lost our father, and actually, okay, maybe I understand your side of it a bit now that I know what it was like being bullied. We had one person just sharing that they were bullied because they grew up in a different religious neighborhood, and they were beaten up every day. And that religious group heard that, and they were in tears, so broken, because they realized, oh yeah, that's what my people did to you. And it just changes the whole dynamic between each other, and opens up a lot of more constructive conversation later, when we actually do need to talk about where our conflict is. And yeah.
Do you have any other, stories like that? You just gave us a couple of examples. Like, is there any that you are particularly fond of?
Yeah, I mean, there's quite a few of that first trip to Turkey was unbelievable. Like, there's guys that are forgiving the person who tortured them for 4 months with electricity during the
actual
war.
person.
Well, wow. Like the person that tortured them isn't there, but they are in their hearts going, I forgive that man, that officer who imprisoned me and tortured me. And then another person's forgiving the person who killed their father. And we had one group that committed genocide and cannibalism against another group in Indonesia. And this was the first time they'd ever met each other. And it was, I didn't know that history. I was just totally blind going into it. And then they put them in a room together. I was like, oh, I wouldn't have put these people in a room together. And yet they were ready, at first time in their lives, to ever meet each other. And they started to forgive each other for this history they had, which was just brutally violent and horrible. And they were starting to get healing from this history. And there's some stories with where Muslims and Christians had just massacred each other in East Indonesia, in the Maluku Islands. And we had the former child soldier leaders, like the commanders of the child soldiers. And there's a great BBC video about it. These two guys, they were the leaders of the mini jihadis and the leader of the mini crusaders. And they can't remember how many people they killed by the time they were age 10. Like, that's the kind of thing that they grew up with. They're about my age now. And they were helping us lead the peace camp to bring these Christians and Muslims together, because they are now best friends. They went through a process of child soldier trauma healing, and they ended up in the same session. They almost killed each other when they met each other, but then the facilitator got them to listen to each other first before they kill each other. And then they ended up like crying, saying, I love you, you're my brother. And they forgave, and they got all this healing. And they were the most violent, like, leaders of the child soldier movement, massacring each other. And to see that kind of healing and restoration, and now to be good friends, it just blows my mind, like, what's possible in the healing of relationships. And it's funny that I can see those stories every day. I'm like literally seeing these stories all the time in these conflict areas. But the places where it seems the most impossible is back in Australia or in America, or somewhere where someone says, yeah, but I just can't forgive that coworker who said that about me, or I'll never forgive my father because he never respected me. And I'm like, okay, so I understand, because I've been there myself, but it's really interesting to sit with these guys who are child soldiers who massacred each other and like did all that, and see them restored. But I can't forgive that friend I felt betrayed by. And it's like really interesting. I feel like there's a beautiful wave of forgiveness and reconciliation coming to us from the edge, a gift from these edges, the places we've written off and said, those places have no hope. Afghanistan, we don't look to them to learn about peace. And yet they're the ones teaching me, because they're willing to forgive the enemy that has destroyed their lives, destroyed their families. And you see the freedom and the joy in their lives as they let go. And as they walk forward, working for peace, they are so brave, willing to die for their community, willing to risk their life to see peace come. And I'm like, wow, I think that's the gift from the edge back to us, to say, maybe I can forgive that person in my family. Maybe it is possible to restore relationships in my community or in my family or wherever.
And I'm just going to break in there and pick up on something that Zach has just said. These are the gifts from the edge. These embedded within these incredible stories of reconciliation from some very unexpected parts of the world are the lessons of how to live life to the full, how to forgive, how to show mercy, how to resolve conflict, and in the process discovering a new level of fullness and abundance of life and appreciation of life. And we're only partway through. There's still many, many stories of breakthrough still to come. But that's all we've got time for today. What I'd love for you to do is to leave a comment below. I'd love to hear either your stories of reconciliation, or if one of these particular stories that you've just heard has touched you, please leave a comment. Tell me which one that you like the most. Make sure that you're subscribed. You can either subscribe on Spotify, or you can subscribe on the blog. Click the Stay Connected button. We've got all sorts of new things coming up. We've got so many new things on the horizon between now and the end of the year. So I'd hate for you to miss out on any of that. Make sure you stay connected to us. I'll let you know when the conclusion of this episode drops, and also when the new quiz comes out, when our 4-day program is coming out. So many cool things that are about to drop. So make sure you do that. Make sure you subscribe. That's all from me for today. Bye for now.